CBS Sports HQ presented by Capital One, and the Chiefs are the one. Back-to-back champions. Patrick Mahomes' third Lombardi trophy. Andy Reid and brass locked up for several more years, Travis Kelce included. But the Chiefs are not the favorites going into this upcoming season. They are 6-1 to win it all. San Francisco favored plus 550. That due in large part to the fact that many believe the NFC is more manageable to get through than the AFC, which has the Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, and Bills right there among some of the favorites in the National Football League. And oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers is back with the Jets. Let's bring in our Super Bowl champions, Bryant, McFadden, and Robert Turbin. We are going to ask the biggest questions for teams in the AFC West, and we're going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs, who have won 8 straight division titles, BMAC. Most teams have actual questions, like concerning questions, but you're asking a question that might be a good thing for Chiefs fans. What is it?
Well, when you look at their team a year ago, granted, they won the Super Bowl, had outstanding play defensively, but getting to that process, you know, their issues on the offensive end were solely, you know, going with the wide receivers. So my question for the Kansas City Chiefs this year, guys, is will this wide receiver unit be better than what we saw throughout the majority of 2023? When you look at the additions they were able to make via free agency, brought in Hollywood Brown. I like that move. You know, drafted the fastest man ever to potentially play in the NFL in Xavier Worthy. I love that move. But also hearing that Rashee Rice, their wide receiver one from a year ago, potentially could be suspended, might be suspended for half of the season. So that would be a significant loss. But when you look at what they have in totality at the wide receiver core, you know, this is a team that they have championship aspirations every year. When you have a quarterback like Pat Mahomes and you have a head coach like Andy Reid, you're expected to get to the Super Bowl by any means necessary. But for them, it's going to be a daunting task because they're going to get every opposing team's best effort like they've seen over the last few years. But they need to get sound, consistent production from their wide receiver core. So that's the biggest question I have in regards to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I hear you on the offensive side of the football, B-Mac, but I'm going to go on the other side defensively, which is the unit that really led this team to winning the Super Bowl last season, really took the reins as the offense was struggling throughout the season. But they did lose a couple key pieces to that defense. Obviously, they re-signed Chris Jones, but the captain and the quarterback of that defense, Willie Gay, is gone. He's gone. L'Jarius Sneed, best corner in the league last season, at least one of them, gone in a trade last season. And if you think about the draft, they didn't address the linebacker position in the draft. Now, they did get a corner late, but will he be ready, all right, to play early within this defense? We know that Steve Spagnuolo, one of the great defensive coordinators in the league, but right now I'm concerned about the consistency and the depth that they have on defense right now, particularly outside of that defensive line, and if they're going to be able to sustain against some of these high-powered offenses.
Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes 10th overall back in the day, 2017. The Oakland Raiders, now the Vegas Raiders, were hoping to have a quarterback sit there at 13 for them. That didn't happen. All 6 quarterbacks already gone by the time they came up 13th overall, BMAC.
Yeah, and that's the biggest question I have with the Raiders, Chris. You hit it right on the top of the head. You know, who will be QB1 for this team? When you look at Gardner Minshew, an experienced vet in the National Football League, you look at Aiden O'Connell, who became the starter when they decided to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. Both guys, you have questions, you have concerns with either guy. So who will be the quarterback one for this team? And will that guy remain QB1 throughout the season? Because if there's a musical chair-like situation going on with the Raiders at the quarterback spot, guys, guess what? That means they're losing ball games. They're not winning. So whoever is the guy week 1, can he sustain a good sense of play to be able to be that guy moving forward? Because yes, you look at the turnover they have going on, a new coaching staff, you know, solidified. You look at some of the personnel they have playing in the AFC West. They can care less. This is a team that they're expecting to win. They're expecting to be in that playoff conversation. But if they don't have sound quarterback play, you can flush all of that down the toilet.
Yeah, B-Mac, that's an excellent question, which brings me to my question as pertains to Devontae Adams. Anytime you have an elite receiver, B-Mac, you know this, man, they want somebody to throw them the football. They want somebody to be able to deliver them the football on a consistent basis. And we saw some of the frustrations from Davante Adams last season when things were not clicking offensively, particularly for him. So for the Raiders, my question is it worth keeping Davante Adams, or better yet, maybe trading him, all right, as a 32-year-old wide receiver and bringing in more assets as it feels like the Raiders are in somewhat of a youth movement right now? Defensively, all right, the key guy on your defense obviously is Max Crosby. He's only 26 or 27 years old, so he's got plenty of tread left on the tire. But you draft Brock Bowers in the draft, you get Jackson Powers-Johnson to shore up that offensive line, and you've got some youth on the defensive side. So can you truly win now without the premier quarterback, all right, to be able to quarterback this offense? I'm not quite sure, but you can help yourself future-wise by maybe getting some assets by trading one of your better players.
You wonder if things were flipped and the Raiders picked ahead of the Broncos, would the Raiders reach for a guy like Bo Nix? That's what the Broncos did, and many had a second, some even a third-round grade on Nix. Turbo, the jury very much out on whether or not Nix can be an NFL starter.
Yeah, my question for the Denver Broncos is, it's all good putting all your chips in Bo Nix. You obviously needed a quarterback. But what if it doesn't work out with Bo Nix? What if it takes some time for him to develop? What's your contingency? Do you trust Zach Wilson and the other guys that you have in that quarterback room as backup quarterbacks? Or is it worth going out and seeking a veteran who has won in this league, who has had some consistency in this league, like a Ryan Tannehill, so at least Bo Nix can develop the way he needs to, not have to feel the pressure of playing right away, and also can learn and be taken under the wing of a veteran quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, who's been there, done that. He's had the highs of being in playoff games and obviously the lows of injuries and other things of that nature. That person doesn't exist in the locker room right now. Stidham is a veteran, but he hasn't had quite the highs and lows like a Ryan Tannehill has that can certainly be beneficial for a guy like Bo Nix. So what is your contingency, Broncos, if it doesn't work out, if it's not working out with Bo Nix right away?
Well, for me, I'm going to keep it right with Bo Nix. You know, the biggest remaining question I have with the Denver Broncos, assuming that Bo Nix is going to be their guy as we see it right now when you look at the personnel, do they have enough surrounding Bo Nix to get the best Bo Nix that he is when it comes to his game? And the reason why I say that is because when you talk about rookie quarterbacks, yes, we like to highlight their individual skill set, but a lot of their success has to do with what is surrounding them, coaching and the personnel. So when you look at the Denver Broncos offensively, clearly you have some glaring concerns with the offensive line. They need to be much better than what they were the last few seasons. But then outside of that, I love Javonte Williams, especially when he's healthy. He's a running back one for any organization when you talk about what he can do, especially there in Denver. But outside of that, they have Courtland Sutton. We've been hearing his name being flirted with the idea of potentially being traded because he wants some new money. They kind of swap positions, swap players. When you talk about moving on with Jerry Jeudy, you brought in Josh Reynolds. You know what I mean? You have Mims Jr. as well. So when you look at the personnel at the skill positions there for Denver offensively, is that enough to get the best Bo Nix? Because when you draft a young guy in, yes, you want him to showcase that he can handle the workload, but for him to be at his best, he better have a great supporting cast for him to lean on, especially when things get a bit sticky in the fourth quarters.
We're asking the biggest remaining questions out of the draft for AFC West teams, and we have one team remaining, the LA Chargers, and they appear to be building more of a running game to suit Jim Harbaugh's style. Robert, you played for a coach that really leaned on the running game. You were a running back for him in Pete Carroll in Seattle, but the Chargers no longer have Austin Eckler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, B-Mac, you made a great point about the Denver Broncos and the supporting cast surrounding both. I have the same questions for the LA Chargers as pertains to Justin Herbert, particularly in the backfield. We understand you went and got J.K. Dobbins, when healthy, has produced at a high level. Gus Edwards has been better sort of coming off the bench as a 1-2 punch type of back. But when he had his opportunities to be the guy, the bell cow, all right, he played inconsistently. Isaiah Spiller has yet to prove himself in this league. So my biggest question for the LA Chargers is, can you depend on the run game? Do you have a run game that you can actually depend on as of right now, particularly with a coach like Jim Harbaugh and an offense that's going to be centered around the run game and play action? I think those questions haven't been answered yet, particularly because J.K. Dobbins hasn't been healthy throughout his career. Gus Edwards has been inconsistent throughout his career. And then Isaiah Spiller has yet to prove himself with his opportunities as he's been given over the course of his career so far.
Yeah, for me, offensively, I'm going to keep it right there with those guys, Robert. For me, you lose Mike Williams, you lose Keenan Allen, you lose Gerald Everett. So who's going to be the go-to pass catcher for this offense? Who is going to be wide receiver one? Who is going to be that guy in 3rd and 8? Justin Herbert knows he is going to get open, and guess what? He is going to catch the football. That's a huge concern because Justin Herbert, when you look at the talent, we believe he's one of the more talented passers in the National Football League. And throughout his professional career, Robert, he's had the luxury of throwing to guys like Keenan Allen, the luxury of throwing to guys like Mike Williams when healthy. So now those two guys are gone, along with Gerald Everett. You have Joshua Palmer. You have Quentin Johnson, who didn't do a lot his rookie campaign, but of course they invested a first-round draft pick in him in a draft ago. And then the more recent draft, you brought in Ladd McConkey, who I love as well, coming out of Georgia in the 2nd round. So you got a lot of guys outside of Joshua Palmer that haven't really done a lot in the National Football League. And when you look at the Chargers, yes, you can kind of, insinuate that they're in a rebuild, but they're still expected to win because that's who Coach Harbaugh is as a coach. And you talked about the running game, Robert. Yes, they might be able to run the football because that's the mentality of their staff. But at some point in time, you're going to have to throw the football. And last time I checked, Justin Herbert got drafted into a situation where he had reliable pass catchers. It's not the same. So he has to be able to lead these young guys, but hopefully someone answers the call as well.
Chargers with the 2nd highest win total in that division, but it's right there on the fringe of playoff territory at 8.5, and then it's a big jump up to the Chiefs at 11.5, and you have to lay 230 for Kansas City to win the division. But that's been a good bet the last decade or so. They are looking for their 9th straight AFC West championship.